The first mistake the aliens made was asking a polite question. The second was asking it in front of a live feed. The sky above Geneva had been bruised purple for 3 days, choked by the shadow of Varelian war barges hanging in low orbit like executioners waiting for applause. Their hulls were cathedral black, veined with blue plasma that pulsed like slow, patient heartbeats. Every global network still functioning had patched into the feed. The Dominion wanted spectacle. They wanted humanity to watch itself kneel. Instead, they got a smirk. Commander Elias Ward stood in what used to be a diplomatic plaza, sandbags stacked against cracked marble, burnt-out armored vehicles forming a half-circle of stubborn defiance. He was in his late 50s, grey pushing through close-cropped hair, sleeves rolled above scarred forearms. No medals. No dress uniform. Just dust and fatigue and the posture of a man who had buried too many friends to be impressed by theatrics. Across from him towered High Legate Zalvorith of the Varelian Dominion, 12 feet of plated exoskeleton and aristocratic menace. His breathing collar shimmered with gemstones ripped from conquered worlds. Translator drones hovered near his mandibles, converting alien clicks into smooth, contemptuous English. "You are Commander Ward," the drone intoned. "On good days," Ward replied. A ripple of alien irritation passed through the delegation. The Dominion had spent 3 months softening Earth. Orbital strikes had erased military bases, flattened naval fleets, punched surgical holes through command bunkers. They'd assassinated heads of state with frightening precision. Satellites were ash. Global infrastructure was crippled. By every model in their archives, humanity should have fractured. Instead, here stood a tired soldier who refused to blink. Zalvorith leaned forward slightly, towering shadow swallowing Ward's boots. "We have analyzed your warfare doctrines," the translator hummed. "Your species assigns specialized combat roles. Artillery, air dominance, snipers." He paused, compound eyes narrowing. "Which human is your sniper?" The question echoed across the ruined plaza. Across the world. Across orbit. Ward didn't look back at his remaining soldiers. He didn't consult anyone. He didn't stall. He smiled. "Pick any civilian," he said. "They don't mind." There was scattered, nervous laughter among alien observers on their ships. The Dominion assumed sarcasm. Primitive bravado. Cultural coping. They were wrong. The first shot cracked through the air so cleanly it felt like the sky itself splitting. One of Zalvorith's honor guards snapped backward as a hypervelocity round punched through the narrow seam between collar plating and thoracic shield node. The exit spray shimmered violet in the sunlight. The guard collapsed before his weapon hit the ground. For a fraction of a second, no one moved. Then the second shot landed. Another guard folded, helmet ruptured. Dominion shields flared to life in a violent shimmer, defensive fields activating around the delegation. Their armor had been calibrated against energy weapons, lasers, plasma, ion bursts. They had not calibrated for dense, old-fashioned hatred traveling at Mach 7. "Locate the firing source." Zalvorith roared. But there was no single source. Across Geneva's skyline, half rubble, half skeleton, muzzle flashes winked from shattered windows. From bell towers. From ventilation shafts. From hills miles away where civilians lay prone behind optics that had once been used to hunt deer, coyotes, elk. An elderly woman in Montana exhaled slowly, adjusting for wind drift over wheat fields. A machinist in Poland fired from a collapsed overpass, whispering his daughter's name. A former accountant in Argentina cycled the bolt of a rifle older than the Dominion's empire and muttered, "Interests due." The Dominion delegation began losing members in measured, merciless rhythm. Ward checked his watch. "You really should have done cultural research," he said conversationally. Plasma cannons roared from overhead gunships. Entire sections of the city vaporized in retaliatory fury. Concrete liquefied. A hospital wing vanished in a white flash. The shooting never stopped. Because this wasn't coordinated by Ward. There was no central command. There didn't need to be. Earth had more civilian-owned long-range rifles than some star systems had citizens. Generations raised on hunting, sport shooting, rural self-reliance. Competitive marksmanship leagues. Veterans who'd come home and taught their kids proper trigger discipline before algebra. The Dominion had studied humanity's wars, nation versus nation, uniform versus uniform. They had not studied humanity's hobbies. Another crack split the air. This round didn't kill, it shattered the translator drone hovering near Zalvoritha's mandibles. Sparks cascaded as the device tumbled, severing the live feed to orbit for half a heartbeat before backup systems kicked in. In that silence, Ward stepped forward slightly. "You wanted to know which one's the sniper," he said quietly. Zalvoritha's breathing collar flared brighter, defensive field thickening. Ward gestured vaguely toward the city. "Depends who you just pissed off." Extraction beams ignited as Dominion Command finally overrode pride with survival instinct. Surviving envoys began dematerializing in columns of harsh white light. One last shot cracked. The round struck Zalvorith square in the shoulder joint, penetrating just enough to rupture a servo cluster. Violet fluid sprayed across broken marble. The High Legate staggered as the beam pulled him skyward. A souvenir. When the light faded, the plaza was quiet except for distant sirens and the faint echo of sporadic gunfire. A young corporal beside Ward swallowed hard. "Sir," he whispered, eyes wide. "We didn't coordinate any of that." Ward watched smoke curl above the skyline. Somewhere far off, another rifle cracked, then another. "Son," he said, voice low and steady, "we don't have to." Up in orbit, aboard the command spire of the Varelian flagship, casualty reports began flooding in. Not catastrophic. Not fleet-ending. But constant. Every landing party faced precision fire. Every patrol lost personnel before engagement. Heat maps of Earth's surface lit up red, not with organized battalions, but with scattered, unpredictable shooters. An analyst spoke hesitantly to Zalvorith as med drones sealed his wound. "High Legate, every thermal signature in proximity to our units appears armed." Zalvorith stared down at the blue planet through reinforced viewport plating. "They are not soldiers," he hissed. The analyst hesitated. "Respectfully, High Legate, they all are." Below, in suburbs and farmlands and ruined cities, humans reloaded calmly. They weren't celebrating. They weren't chanting. They were settling accounts. The Dominion had expected a government to surrender. Instead, they had declared war on a species. And humanity, bruised and furious and terrifyingly patient, had answered the only way it knew how. Not with speeches. With distance. And steady hands. The Dominion's response was predictable. Brutal. Escalated to a level even their own strategists considered excessive. Orbital bombardments intensified. Entire cities disappeared in seconds, vaporized into ash and molten glass. Power grids were fried. Water systems poisoned. Farms reduced to scorched furrows. Yet humanity did not bend. Did not crumble. What the Dominion hadn't calculated was that humanity had prepared for collapse long before the first ship arrived. They had contingency plans, secret stockpiles, and communication networks designed to survive EMP strikes and orbital denial. When satellites fell silent, ham radios flared to life. Mesh networks formed spontaneously, built on improvisation and decades of paranoia about nuclear drills and survivalist guides. The world that looked defeated was instead awakening. Every Dominion patrol that landed expecting passive submission found themselves walking into nightmares. In a small Texas town, 4,000 civilians waited. Dominion ground units descended in perfect formation. Towering, armored, gravitic cannon-bearing shock troops. The commander's voice crackled over the comm, announcing victory before the boots even touched the pavement. Then the ground erupted. Hidden explosives, placed months in advance, detonated in sequence. The first 2 shock troops disintegrated. The rest scrambled, triggering defensive shields that shimmered violently. That's when rifle fire opened from every direction. Shark guns, hunting rifles, pistols, even ancient muskets reloaded with improvised slugs. A woman in her 60s fired from the roof of a hardware store, muttering about property taxes and revenge. A teenager with braces cycled rounds from his father's bolt-action rifle, whispering the name of a brother lost in the first bombardment. Farmers rolled tractors into the path of gravitic cannons, tipping them with precision into advancing shock troops. By nightfall, the street was littered with shattered armor and alien corpses. By morning, orbital sensors recorded nothing but scorched earth, but the human defenders were gone, melted back into the landscape like shadows. The Dominion watched in disbelief. Every strike they had planned, every suppression tactic, failed. Their shields, their drones, their gravitic cannons, it was all calibrated for structured armies with predictable movements. Humanity was a swarm. A continent armed with ingenuity, improvisation, and hatred. And the worst part? They weren't centralized. There was no army to crush. No headquarters to bomb. Each civilian was autonomous, lethal, and ready. Then came the broadcast. It started as a faint signal, cutting across Dominion frequencies, overriding encryption and auto-translating into the common tongue. Commander Ward's face appeared across every command console, battered, weary, but alive. Behind him, not soldiers, not military formations, just civilians, parents, students, shopkeepers, standing in rows, armed and patient. "You wanted formal war," Ward said. His voice was calm, deliberate. "You've got it." He leaned closer to the camera. "You asked which human's the sniper. You still don't get it." Up in low Earth orbit, one of the Dominion's smallest war barges ruptured violently, secondary explosions tearing the hull apart. Panic rippled through the fleet. There had been no boarding, no sabotage team. Human hackers, embedded months ago, had programmed maintenance drones with microcharges, waiting for the right moment. And then the missiles began to launch. Hidden silos that the Dominion had long assumed neutralized fired in coordinated volleys. Some were intercepted. Most weren't. The debris of a destroyed cruiser burned across the atmosphere like fallen stars. The message was clear: humanity had reached orbit without ships. Without fleets. Without permission. Zalvoritha's compound eyes widened in disbelief. The Dominion had faced thousands of species, entire civilizations, but never one that could weaponize a planet so efficiently, so unpredictably. On Earth, Ward ended his broadcast. His expression was no longer smirking, it was grave. "You think you understand us. You don't. You never did. Every rifle, every plan, every invention you think you've destroyed, we've adapted. We've survived. And now, we're coming up." Across the Dominion command networks, the words sank in like a hammer. Fear, the first real, pure fear the Empire had felt in centuries, replaced arrogance. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. Humanity had weaponized its culture, its history, its very instincts for survival. And the Dominion was beginning to understand that this species didn't surrender. It didn't negotiate. It annihilated threats with precision, patience, and, above all, ingenuity. And the galaxy would learn that lesson the hard way. The first ripples of panic among the Varelian fleets weren't caused by human weapons. They were caused by certainty. Humans, wounded and hunted, could no longer be underestimated. Because while the Dominion had brought armies to conquer, humanity had brought themselves, everywhere, unstoppable, unseen, and angry. The war had only just begun. But for the first time, the Varelian Dominion realized something terrifying. They were playing by human rules now. And humans didn't have rules. The Dominion's confidence fractured faster than their shields. What remained of their orbital fleet was no longer a war machine. It was a panic-stricken assembly of terrified nobles and exhausted tacticians, scrambling to respond to a threat they didn't understand. Commander Ward moved quietly through a ruined European city, picking his way across rubble-strewn streets that had been turned into sniper corridors. He carried no special gear, no exotic weaponry. Just a rifle, a sidearm, and an uncanny knowledge of where a human could hide while being deadly. Around him, civilians moved like ghosts, engineers with makeshift railguns, students firing from rooftops, hunters using drones scavenged from downed Dominion craft. Zalvoritha's emissaries had called him a commander of discipline. Ward's smirk had said otherwise. Humanity didn't need disciplined battalions. Humanity had rage, improvisation, and vision. By mid-afternoon, Ward's team, what little remained of conventional military units, met in a semi-collapsed cathedral. The walls were peppered with scorch marks, ceilings half-caved, and stained glass windows shattered into jagged rainbows across stone floors. "You sure the civilians can hold?" asked Sergeant Morales, a grizzled veteran with a prosthetic arm. Ward glanced out the shattered doorway where a mother had set up a sniper nest, her daughter beside her, both scanning the streets. "They won't just hold," he said. "They'll hunt. They'll choose. And they'll make it personal." Morales shook his head. "Personal? Against aliens? You're talking about slaughter." "Exactly," Ward said. "Slaughter." And that's when the first Dominion ground unit stepped into the street below. Their armor gleamed blue, adaptive shields humming softly, weapons calibrated to human bone density, or what they thought was human bone density. The squad moved in formation, assuming predictable paths. Then chaos unfolded. It started with a shot from a rooftop 20 stories above. The lead alien's visor shattered. The second alien screamed when a makeshift EMP device disabled its shield for a fraction of a second. In that instant, 3 more rounds hit, targeting servos and joint actuators. The squad hesitated. A farmer across the street fired his old hunting rifle at the rearguard, every bullet calculated for maximum crippling. By the time the Dominion realized they were under coordinated fire, the squad had disintegrated into twitching, hissing pieces of exoskeleton. Below, other groups moved with deadly efficiency. Civilians using flamethrowers made from repurposed industrial equipment, improvised mortars built from leftover artillery rounds, modified anti-armor rifles, each attack improvised, brutal, and terrifyingly effective. The Dominion had fought thousands of species. Some surrendered, some resisted, some fought well. But nothing had ever fought like this. Humanity didn't fight in units. Humanity fought like a contagion, every corner, every family, every mind an independent node of strategy. Ward moved among them, giving quiet instructions, but mostly letting them do what they knew. Every shot taken, every trap set, was personal. Every death of an alien was revenge for something. The brother who'd died in the first orbital strike, the neighbor who'd been vaporized in a bombardment, the farmer whose land had been irradiated. By nightfall, Dominion casualties were catastrophic. Not by fleet numbers, not by technology, but by sheer unpredictability. Urban landscapes became death traps. Every street, every alley, every rooftop was a potential sniper nest. Every human who had been a civilian yesterday was a trained killer today. And then came the twist. From orbit, a Dominion reconnaissance ship detected something impossible. Unmanned craft, civilian airliners, cargo ships, even personal yachts, disappearing from radar near the North Atlantic. Moments later, reports came in. The vessels had appeared in the stratosphere, carrying improvised launch platforms for missiles, drones, and anti-armor devices. "Impossible," one admiral whispered. "They don't have that technology." Ward's voice came over the secure channel, calm and deadly. "You think we needed your tech," he said. "We just needed your arrogance. You thought Earth was broken. You thought humanity was predictable. You thought civilians couldn't kill. You were wrong." In orbit, the Dominion fleet scrambled as a coordinated strike hit a command cruiser. Missile volleys, laser-guided charges, and hijacked drones tore through their formation. The barge disintegrated spectacularly, leaving debris raining into the atmosphere below. Panic rippled through the fleet. Back on the ground, Ward walked through the city streets where civilians were beginning to regroup. The survivors weren't cheering. They were methodical, exhausted, but still armed. A young boy with a scoped rifle looked at him and nodded, silently acknowledging the trust placed in him. Ward allowed himself a small smile. "They're learning the hard way," he muttered. And somewhere far above, the Dominion realized the galaxy's rules had changed. Their technological superiority, their battle formations, their centuries of conquest, they meant nothing against a species that weaponized ingenuity, history, and vengeance. Because humanity didn't just fight wars, they survived them. And every civilian, every family, every village was now a soldier, a sniper, and a strategist. And the Varelian Dominion, for the first time in millennia, tasted fear. It was only the beginning. Humanity had decided, they would not bow. They would not negotiate. They would not surrender. They would hunt. The Dominion called it unthinkable. Ward called it Tuesday. By now, humanity had done what no other species had ever managed: weaponized an entire planet without a single formal fleet. Orbital strikes were intercepted by improvised kinetic weapons. Alien drones fell to guided mortars built from scavenged industrial parts. Entire city blocks had become sniper cathedrals, vertical grids of resistance, lethal from every angle. Ward moved through the ruins of Paris, now a labyrinth of collapsed buildings, overturned vehicles, and shattered glass that glittered like fire under a blood-red sunset. He wasn't leading troops. He was walking among them, observing, coordinating, but mostly letting the humans do what they had always done best: improvise. A teenager leaned over the edge of a half-collapsed hotel, taking aim at a Dominion reconnaissance drone hovering silently above the Seine. A grandmother adjusted a scope on a centuries-old rifle, murmuring, "For Henri." Zalvoritha's flagship trembled in orbit. Sensors reported snipers in every city, in every village, in every forest. Humans had adapted Dominion tech within hours, using gravity disruptors to redirect orbital projectiles, converting plasma-based devices into portable railguns, and, most disturbingly, modifying Dominion maintenance drones into autonomous explosive platforms. The Dominion High Council convened emergency war deliberations. Nobles hissed and clicked at each other, terrified, their arrogance replaced with a palpable, gnawing fear. "We underestimated them," Zalvorith admitted, voice trembling slightly. "Every engagement is unpredictable. Every civilian is a sniper. Every survivor is an engineer, a tactician. We are obsolete," one older admiral finished. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ward's forces moved quietly. No parades, no fanfare, just lethal, purposeful action. Small squads, mostly civilians, had begun sabotaging Dominion infrastructure from below. Orbital relay stations, sensor arrays, plasma generation nodes, everything could be turned against them with a few well-placed charges and human ingenuity. Ward stepped onto a hill overlooking the ruins of Geneva, watching the horizon shimmer with distant muzzle flashes. A young corporal approached, hesitant. "Sir, what now?" Ward smiled faintly. "Now we remind them why humanity isn't just survivors. We're hunters. And they're prey." Down below, Dominion forces were scrambling to regroup. Orbital commanders were issuing desperate, contradictory orders. Reconnaissance drones reported cities emptied, only to suddenly detect activity where they had assumed no humans remained. Civilians had vanished, only to strike from rooftops, saw networks, and abandoned tunnels. The Dominion had never seen war like this. And then came the final act of brilliance, the psychological blow. Ward's team hacked the Dominion's main communication array. Across every fleet channel, every occupied city network, his voice rang out. "You asked which human is the sniper," he said calmly. "The answer: all of us. Everyone you see, everyone you think is hiding, everyone you ever underestimated. We are not soldiers. We are Earth. And this is our planet." The message hit harder than any bombardment. In the Dominion fleets, morale shattered. Commanders hesitated. Nobles screamed orders that no one followed. Systems went offline under human cyber attacks. Entire units refused to engage, paralyzed by the realization that they were facing a species that had weaponized civilization itself. Back on the ground, Ward walked through the quiet aftermath of a skirmish. Civilians were tending to the wounded, salvaging supplies, setting new traps, preparing for the next wave. He paused to watch a father teach his daughter how to zero her rifle, the girl steady and calm, like she had done this before. Ward turned to his corporal. "They don't understand us. They think they can fight fearlessly because they have numbers. They don't know fear. But that's okay. We know everything about fear. We invented it. And now, they'll feel it, everywhere." In orbit, Dominion commanders realized the scale of their failure. They had conquered countless worlds, but never one like this. They had fought armies, but never a planet full of ghosts who shot from every shadow, improvised from every ruin, and retaliated for every death. They had underestimated humanity, and that had become their undoing. On Earth, Ward looked toward the horizon, where faint muzzle flashes still winked across distant cities. Somewhere in the forests, on hills, and across deserts, civilians moved like a single, unseen organism. Silent, patient, deadly. Zalvoritha's flagship attempted one last strike, targeting Geneva. The orbital cannons fired. Human engineers had anticipated this. Guided charges detonated remotely. The flagship's engines ruptured mid-burn. It broke apart spectacularly, trailing fire and debris across Earth's orbit. A cheer, not loud, not celebratory, but steady, quiet, and defiant, rose from the survivors. Humanity had done the impossible. They had weaponized themselves. They had adapted, innovated, and struck with precision the Dominion had never imagined. Ward lowered his rifle and exhaled. "They'll need a new definition of war," he muttered. Because humanity hadn't just survived. They had reclaimed the game on their terms. Every civilian, every sniper, every improvised engineer, and every eye that had watched the sky and calculated a shot had proven one undeniable truth. Do not underestimate humans. Ever. And somewhere far above, the remnants of the Varelian Dominion realized the galaxy itself had changed. A species of hunters now held the cosmos in their crosshairs. And humanity was just getting started.